Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday Lunch and Learn. Uh, I am one of the co-hosts, Nav, and I am a lawyer and life coach for lawyers. And myself and my co-host, Siobhan, have been bringing you guys Lunch and Learn Mondays for the past few weeks. Today, we are really excited to have a guest with us, a special guest who is an expert networker and is going to be talking to you guys a little bit today about his learnings from doing 100 events in 100 days and how he's kind of shifted online. Siobhan will give a little bit more detail on that before we get started. In today's session, I want to encourage you all to feel free to use the chat box. You'll find that if you hover over the spot that says chat at the bottom of your screen, a chat box will show up on your right side. So please feel free to share any questions or thoughts in the chat box. We will be taking a look at that throughout our call today. And also at the end of the session, we'll open up everyone's mics and allow you to ask any questions that you may have of any of us. Reza will be a great resource for you guys to talk to today. And in terms of how this will fit in with the practice of law, it's actually very relevant in terms of marketing yourself and networking. Now is not a time to have to slow down or even stop your networking. We'll be talking about some tips on how you can leverage this online space and continue to build your own network and use that to advance your career. So I'm going to leave everyone's mics on mute during the duration of this call, just because some of us might have some background noise or drilling happening upstairs. And I want to ensure that everyone's getting the most out of our session today. So at the end, we'll open up everyone's mics for that. But for now, I want to hand it over to my co-host, Siobhan.
Yay, thank you. Thanks, Nav. Thanks everyone so much for joining us today. I want to quickly introduce our guest speaker today, who has very kindly given up his time to come and talk to you all. Reza. Reza is the founder of Ovou. Did I pronounce that right?
That's correct.
Oh, I've been practicing that one. 4 little letters. Who would know it's so complicated to pronounce? But I found it very hard this morning. So Ovou, and Reza's going to tell you more about Ovou as he goes through and tells you his story, because I feel, and Nav also agrees with me when we've been talking, that one of the best ways that we learn is through storytelling and hearing other people's stories. And that's why stories in general have been so important to all of our cultures from the very beginning. It's how we've transferred information. And Reza's story is one in particular that I just found fascinating. And when Reza came to one of our very, very early Global Lawyers of Canada, BC Happy Hours, I mean, he was right there at the beginning. We did not know what we were doing. We just threw up an Eventbrite. People showed up and we were like, oh, now what do we do? And Reza was incredibly patient, and he mingled with everybody, and he talked to so many different people, and so many different people came up to me afterwards and said, God, that guy Reza was so interesting. He was really good. And so, of course, I then had to find Reza on LinkedIn and connect with him. And I've been following his journey ever since. And I'm so grateful that he said he would come along and talk to us today and share his journey. And so a little bit of a background of what his journey was, I think I can say this without ruining the story, Reza, is that he started a process of going to various different events in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland. And it kind of spiraled into 100 events in 100 days. So it's kind of a lot. I mean, it's a lot of events. So I'm really intrigued to find out what Reza learned from that experience and how at the end of it, he actually launched his latest business, Ovou. So Reza, over to you.
Thank you for that introduction. Hello to everyone. My name is Reza. Reza V for short. My last name is a long one to remember and pronounce. I am the founder of Ovou Smart Business Card, and this is a project I've had the idea for a while, but around September time, I decided to fully invest myself into it and work with my developer to put together this technology so we can get rid of paper business card. it simply works with, just a tap on anybody's phone, and that's the exchange of contact. And I realized early on, I need to become my number one user, my number one customer, before I have the audacity to ask anybody else to purchase one from me, or to give it a try. And I needed to find out all the little issues, everything that goes on when two strangers are meeting. I need to be there, live it, and understand it. So I went to a few events. This is around October, November timeframe, and I realized one or two events is not going to cut it. I'm going to meet few people and exchange one or two contacts. The sample size is just very low. I need to live this longer, and I need to become that story that can then tell everybody else this is a good product. So this is how it started, and I came up with a crazy idea to attend 100 events in 100 days. I told myself, if I find something related to my industry, marketing, or found startups, I would go to those. But if I don't, I'm going to go to anything that I find, and I'm not going to limit myself. And I went with an open, I let the filter be wide open. I understand it's not something that everybody could do in their professional life, but I decided to meet everyone and anyone that I get a chance to meet, and I talk to them and see where that leads. And I told myself, commit to 100 events and don't look for any results until at the very end. And I have to say, up until 60, 70th event, I could have easily given up. There was no real hope for anything that comes out of this. Nobody really knew me. Every event I went to, people were kind of questioning why I'm doing this. A lot of people said to me that this is now not how you're supposed to launch a product. This is not how you're supposed to research. There are better ways to do that. But I was eager to learn, what is it happening between two individuals, two human beings, for the very first time saying hello, and they don't know anything about each other. And that fascinated me. That was something I was really interested to learn. So I'm going to share it with you guys, share my screen so you guys can see um, a little bit of some of the photos. I don't know if I can share my computer. If I share Finder, no, I want to share the entire screen. I'm going to give it a try,
Is
and
it
then
letting
you
you? There
tell
you
me
go.
if you see. Okay, so do you see these photos?
Yes.
Great. I want to take you through a few of the events I went to. So these are the events. This is BNI. A lot of lawyers go there, a lot of small business owners. This is a startup event where people pitch their ideas. This is a smaller networking group. Again, small business owners go there and help each other. This was a storytelling event. I got to tell stories and perfect my public speaking skills. This was a marketing event. A majority of them were women, but I wasn't shy. So I reached out and I said, if I'm welcome, and I joined them. This was a workshop around B2B business development. This was kind of a workshop slash networking for, again, small business owners. This was Latin Cover. Every single person here are from Latin America except me. I was very bold to just, join them. That was the event that day I found. This was a workshop for self-awareness. I really enjoyed this one. This is a lunch meeting, again, small business owners. This was a bigger trade show. This was more about sustainability and environment. This was a pitch night, pitch competition for startups. This was a Toastmasters club, again, public speaking. This was, I think that we saw that one. This was BNI. So you get an idea of how the variety of events I went to. I want to also share with you guys some of the posts I made on LinkedIn, because I was documenting the process on LinkedIn. This was the very first post I put. I said, I want to do this. What do you guys think? No comments, nothing. And then 10 events later, I said, I did 10 events. What do you guys think? I've been doing that. And I got a few comments, few likes, and then slowly I started just posting event number 6, 13, 21. And every single event, you can see I tagged the people I had some sort of a meaningful connection with, and I connected with them. I tagged them. I said, these are the people I met. So it made it more real. People who saw, they were like, oh, this guy is not just attending events. This guy is actually connecting with people. And that's how I documented my journey on LinkedIn. And you can see slowly the numbers are growing. Each post is getting a lot more visibility because people are tuning in to watch my journey. And let me stop my sharing. Okay, can everyone see me again? Okay. Yes, so I started sharing my journey on LinkedIn, and I found out online networking was equally important, if not more important, than the offline work I did. And I have the analogy of when you put a campfire, all those little wood chips you're picking up and putting them together is your offline, for me at least, it was my offline efforts. And when I put it on online, it was like pouring gasoline on that fire. It just went to a massive fire, and the results I got. Had I not used LinkedIn, all those hours I calculated, I literally spent 400 hours over 100 days to commute and attend these events. Had I not used LinkedIn, my results would have been different. The person I met at the early stages of my story, they wouldn't have heard from me. Siobhan wouldn't have kept in touch and followed along. But equally, had I not attend 100 events and just spend hours and hours talk on videos and post on LinkedIn and make my LinkedIn profile perfect, that again wouldn't have worked. I've seen tons of people who are telling us how to do things and they haven't done it. I decided to be I decided to be the person who's doing it. And instead of saying, I'm the authority, listen to me, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm learning, I'm going to share with you guys. And it was a stronger bond because there is no somebody's better than the rest of us. And I feel like that's something missing online. During the journey, I didn't know I'm gonna host my 100th, and I'm gonna have my launch event. Eventually, as I got closer to that date, I just thought that might be an interesting idea, and it slowly evolved to, should I get speakers? And I told my developer, do you think you can have everything ready for the 100th event so we can actually launch? So it slowly came together, and I had my 100th event in Vancouver. 200 professionals came. I had 4 very notable speakers, including Daily Hive's co-founder, editor and chief and partner, as well as a few other startup founders. And it was a really good event and successful event. And in that event, I did a speech where I shared my story. And my main takeaway of what I learned was that people are I had to remind everyone in the room that you guys are way bigger than what you do. You may not realize how bigger you are than what you do, but what you do is not what people are connecting with. People are connecting with the person you are. And that's something people forget. I've been tired of endless conversations that I've had when the conversation starts with, what do you do? And then you get stuck in that avenue, you get stuck in that conversation. It's very hard to get off that. So it's very important for us to, number one, peel the other person's layers to get to who they are, and make it easy for them to do the same towards us, because that's when the real connections happen. I also shared with the room the value of online networking, or it's called social networking. Every comment you're putting underneath post or reply, or any thread or Reddit post you're engaging, these are networking. These are not any difference than offline networking. and people all of a sudden become a different version of themselves. The secret is having your online persona be identical to your real life persona. I don't want Siobhan to face a different person on LinkedIn than the person she met in person. Those videos, the language, the type of grammar issues I make, it has to be me. It shouldn't be a professional version of me that is super perfect, and somebody else wrote my post, somebody else edited my video, and then in person I have all these flaws. We are human beings. We have flaws. I know I have an accent. I know I have grammar issues. I bring that with me to LinkedIn. I don't take away that, because that's the flavor she got introduced with in person, and I want my audience to see the same person in online, so they feel like there is a connection. And during my 100 events, I experienced a number of people that I saw multiple times during those events, and they told me that while they didn't see me, they felt like they're connected because they got engaged with my content online. And that's the real purpose of contents online, your videos, your text, or whatever you're putting out there. So that was my 100 event story. And ever since this pandemic or virus outbreak happened, I was thinking to myself, what would I do if this was, the time that I wanted, if my timing wasn't right? I was super lucky. I had my 100th event February 20th. I feel like 10 days later, I couldn't invite a single person to that event. So if I needed to do that all over again, I would jump on all these virtual events. I would excessively jump into threads and links and comments and really jump onto conversations, and you want to add a value to that conversation. Same way in person, if I hear someone talk about arts or construction, I'm not gonna really say anything. But if I hear about events or networking or technology or startup, I'm gonna add my 2 cents, and I'm gonna add value to that conversation. I'm sure your expertise within law is in a way that you can find those conversations on Twitter, on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever those conversations are happening, and really add your 2 cents, add your knowledge. And people appreciate that. People will get intrigued to click on your profile and go check out what else is happening. And one of the things that is crippling a lot of people is that social media has become this popularity contest. And while if you want to become a celebrity or movie star, that matters, I don't know why a lawyer would care about their follower numbers. Like, I don't see the reasoning, because when you are a service provider, when you're a business owner, you are not succeeding by the number of people that know you. You are succeeding by the number of impact or the quality of impact you're making. So I don't know why some people are crippled by that number, and if they have 400, 500 audience, all of a sudden they're not putting out quality content. I feel like we need to still do that and treat it as in person. If you take a microphone and speak for 10 people, or if you do a meeting with 20, 10, 20 people, if you have 20 audience, that should do it. That's the same thing. So um, there's a lot of vulnerability in that area that people are not willing to put themselves out there. And the other main takeaway, I would say, whether it's virtual or offline, putting yourself out there and being that vulnerable person, it's hard. There's a lot of fear around how people judge us, especially if your professional life is on the line. But at the same time, that's when the magic happens. That's when the true people that make a difference in your profession gravitate towards you. You may possess the same skills as somebody else, but you have something in your personality, in your character, that person wants to connect with you and do business with you as opposed to somebody else. And lastly, I would say people always treat their networking group or even these virtual groups groups as who's my customer, and they forget that each person has a Rolodex, each person has a list of contacts, and how can I tap into their contacts? That's where the power of networking comes. I let everybody else ask me questions. I don't want to talk too much either.
Reza, that was fantastic. Honestly, your entire journey is inspiring and also humbling at the same time, because, as you say, it's really difficult to put yourself out there, and to put yourself out there with your peers and then with strangers as well. Like, they both have their different dynamics.
Yes.
And you really did. I mean, you came to an all lawyer event.
Yes.
You know, and I do remember going, "Oh, you're not a lawyer? Cool. Why are you here then?" And and there's nothing wrong with it. I actually found it really like, oh wow, somebody found us who wasn't a lawyer. That's kind of cool. It was a validation that what we were doing was realistic. But you've mentioned a lot about networking and then building up on those and commenting and having dialogues. Do you see that as part of relationship building? Because when we talk about network building or network formation, it's just making that initial contact. But then we start to look at the relationship building, which is more, in my mind at least, the long term, the bigger picture. And you've kind of touched on that. But how do you now do that? How are you taking all of those initial contacts that you made and turning this into a long-term relationship that has mutual validity?
Absolutely. And if I say I've made relationships with everybody I met, I'm lying. So it's you meet a lot of people, some of them right away it turns into a stronger connection, relationship, some of them not. I had the mentality of how can I bring this person value up front, and I made sure the people that I like to make relationships with, I brought them value sooner and more. For example, I'm passionate in marketing, and I met someone through BNI that I felt like this person knows what she's doing. She's a very strong marketer. She had experience 20 years in marketing. So I realized I want to make a better connection with this person. And quickly I brainstorm in my head, how can I bring her value so when the time comes, I have a strong connection to contact. And in addition to that, my online activity and me building that personal brand, and personal brand meaning that I want people to think about Reza as a person who does XYZ, by doing it, not by trying to make that artificial brand. But as I'm engaged online and as I'm posting a lot, people start remembering me. So they gonna reach out to me when they want to. Same way you have a lunch break and you think about Reza, that is me building my persona online. And I'm so super afraid when I say building, because people think they are in control of it. I'm not in control. I'm just active on it. I put myself out there. By being active, I'm visible to people like yourself, and then you reach out to me. So it's a two-way thing. It's not always a one-way direction. Had I just kept, by the way, I want to show this on video. I do have all these business cards. I put them in these Ziplocs. It's a lot. It's all these business cards. Had I just kept business cards on my desk, it just doesn't build relationships. I had to be active online, connect somewhere, and there are different categories. Some of them right away I email, some of them I don't have a reason to email, I just add them on LinkedIn. Some of them, different ways, but have a tie that connects us, and then we can build on that. I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. That's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Thank you again for sharing your story. I think there's so much value in what you've said in terms of, networking online, but continuing to build those relationships. And I think right now, in terms of the current landscape that we're seeing with the pandemic and everyone being forced to be online, it's probably more important than ever to put it's kind of essentially building your online brand, right? Your personal brand online by being able to connect with people, like you called it social networking, messaging, commenting, and things like that. somebody just asked a question whether it's difficult to sell legal services at this time. And although you're not a legal professional, in terms of selling services in general, what would be your kind of top pointers beyond building that? You did say putting value first for other people. I would love for you to touch a little bit more on that, even beyond a legal standpoint. Siobhan and I can touch on the legal part of that, but
Mhm.
how do you know that what you're putting out there is valuable to other people, so we keep that two-way street going?
So I've been lately interviewing. I have a bunch of users using this card, and I've been interviewing our top users. And yes, and the last few days I've been interviewing, especially the service providers, because they were the top user of the card. And it's interesting to me how during the offline events, service providers join the event with the mind that they're looking for the room, they're scanning the room, they're trying to qualify leads, and it's exhausting for them because they have to put their professional self out there, etc., etc. Whereas the qualified lead is not there to sell, is there to enjoy a content, enjoy a conversation. So it's difficult in virtual world because you're exposed more. If you're salesy, people get to know that a lot faster. In the real world, people can dance around the topic, and then after a few sentences or a few conversation, you then are like, oh, this person is trying to sell me something. Whereas online, it's just super fast that oh, this person is trying to sell. Being salesy, I think the best solution is not being salesy. That's the only thing that comes to my mind. And in terms of value, what I think is having curiosity and letting that curiosity in the conversation to lead you in places that you otherwise didn't plan is the best way to find out things about the person. Because think about it, you're meeting a new human being, and if you plan your questions, you're going to miss a lot about this new person. But being present in that conversation and letting it lead to different places, I find people want to do business with those they know, they like, and trust. That's the saying everybody says. And I got to really experience it and see other people bonding over that. And that's so true because end of the day, there are hundreds of real estate agents that can do the job for me, for example, and that might go same with legal. um, End of the day, I want to do business with the one that understands me, that is like me, that likes the same stuff. So there is a reason. For example, some realtors, they show a fancy car, they show beyond showing their wealth and all that. But if they truly love golf, and I love golf, or they truly like cars and I like cars, there is a bond there. So I feel like lawyers talking about their other side of things. So you're a service provider, but in your video, for a change, once in a while, you're putting out there your favorite hobbies or what sort of lifestyle you have or different aspects of you. It makes you more human, it makes it more interesting. But I also warn you, be okay with some people not liking that, and be okay with some people liking it more. I feel like those few that bond with you further is worth the ones
Yes.
that you're losing.
Right. And it's really going beyond what's on the surface and showing people other parts of you. And I love that
Yes.
you said that you mentioned the fact that people will want to connect with you if they know, like, and trust you. I mean, those are the three things, whether you're building relationships, whether you're selling a service or a good, you need to humanize
Absolutely.
yourself. And it's a little bit
Absolutely.
more challenging to do behind a screen, but
Yes.
showing up on video or putting out content that could be helpful for other people, or sharing somebody else's content, I think also is something that helps kind of provide value for the people in your
And
network.
building your digital presence. By that I mean, if I go online, so let's say your real life is now limited, I cannot have a coffee meeting with you, I cannot have a, go on a golf with my lawyer or something like that. Well, their Instagram has to do that job. It has to fill that gap. Your Instagram should show your personality, and then your Facebook shows your family version of yourself, your LinkedIn shows your professional self.
Hmm.
So these digital presence are there for you to build your persona online. Some people build a too perfect persona that I feel like it screams fake, and it's sometimes it's deceiving. um, when these are the stuff that when people get comfortable around, it can be used for bad and good. So I feel like if you're more yourself and you put it out there, it's going to benefit you. And I don't see social media as a place for people to share. Like, seriously, I think if you have a private photo that is more for family, well, keep it in your family albums or keep it in a family group. People insist to use it on social media, but at the same time they're like, what about my privacy? Well, put the stuff that you're okay to share over coffee. And here's the striking factor, thing that strike me the most. There are a lot we are willing to share over coffee with a stranger we just met, and then we are upset about social media. We're like, okay, if you're willing to share that level of detail with your client, I feel like sharing it online and adding some personality to yourself is valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I totally
Absolutely.
agree.
Yeah, and the one thing I think with legal services right now is people still need legal services. They still need them, but what they don't want right now is to be sold to. No one ever wants to be sold to, but I think especially right now, they don't want to be sold to. But what they do want is that added value. So they want snippets of possibly relevant advice, right? Relevant information. Be careful giving legal advice, obviously, over social media.
Mhm.
Different jurisdictions have different rules, but basically we shouldn't. But you can give information,
Mhm.
break it down into small, bite-sized, relevant pieces, and explain why that might be relevant. So I've seen some people do this very effectively recently. Actually, with here in Canada today, it just launched the Emergency Relief Fund program for people, which is basically, for those of you who are not aware of it, it's an employment benefit for everyone who's just been laid off or had the hours cut through because of COVID-19. And somebody actually put it together in a really simple way, and they had 3 different neighbors who lived on the same street, and one of them, and they're all business owners, small business owners, but they're all incorporated in a different way. And it broke it down into a very simple scenario of what that person's situation was and what was available to support them and their business right now. And so taking information and breaking it down into a simple way that's aimed at your market, so your clients, could be a really useful way of doing it. But also just reaching out to people and checking in with them and saying, I know this is a really difficult time. I just wanted to check in and see if there's anything I can do to help. Like, do you need anything? And it's not, do you need legal services? It's, do you need anything?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Do you need me to arrange to get some food delivered to you? Do you need somebody to pick something up and drop it off at your door for you? And at this point in time, that's what Reza's talking about adding value to those people in some way. And yes, it's kind of outside of the box of how we would typically think of doing things, but that's what life is right now. We're thinking outside the box. We're taking away all the structures that particularly lawyers have felt that we need to act in a certain way. And those rules are kind of almost being flown to the wall, and we're just seeing what's sticking right now. So yes, it is a challenging market, 100%, especially if you're in certain areas. I know for what I do in my day job, it's extremely challenging right now. The market is pretty much non-existent, although I saw a little bit of an uptake this morning, so that's kind of exciting. But there's other ways we can support our clients, and we can build those relationships as we keep going. And this works at a junior level too. So it doesn't matter if you're a senior with your own client base, or you're a junior and you just work on the client's file, on your associates, your partner's files. You can still reach out to people, anybody in your network, and check in on them, because they may have a question that they never thought about. And as Reza said, as you get to know people and they start having a conversation with you, they start to open up and tell you more about themselves, and maybe you can help them with a problem. I had somebody recently reach out to me, and I personally couldn't help them, but I was able to refer them to somebody else who has been able to help them. And they've come back to me and said, thank you so much. with now progressing, that was really, really good. So, you know, that relationship building is there, even though I can't directly help them. But who knows? Maybe in the future, I will be able to help them with the question.
And I'm going to add one more thing to that. In terms of information, I've seen a lot of professionals refrain from sharing information, and they use social media as a way to mousetrap their client. They say, like, if you want such and such information, you can call me, you can do that. You've got to understand, in 2020, in the internet world, information travels at the light speed, and it doesn't want resistance. It finds its way to the people through the least resistant way.
Yep.
So if you refrain from sharing information, I, as the client or the user, will find those
Yep.
information from somewhere else. So what a better way for you to become my source of information, and I start liking to get my information from your social media, and you share that for free, but that will become a way for you to get more qualified lead
Yep.
clients. And I'm sure, even if I have all the legal information on how to put together a legal document, I still want help from someone else to do it. But it gives me peace of mind that this person knows his stuff. I've been involved in this, and I like what he's saying. So the moment you stop sharing or refrain from sharing those knowledge, I feel like it's a lost opportunity,
Yes.
and people are not paying for, I wouldn't say always, but sometimes they're not paying for the knowledge you have, that somebody else may have it. They're paying because they trust you with that knowledge.
Yeah, it really helps build credibility, and it's very true. A lot of people hoard the information that they have, or any resources that they have. At the end of the day, that's just it's building your credibility, it's building your authority, your area of expertise. If you're sharing that information, of course, in the legal world, you have to be careful of not
Yes.
doing a blanket legal advice type of thing. But
Mm.
if you're sharing resources, that's really helping everyone here build their credibility.
Mm.
So the next time that person needs something, they'll come to you because now they see you as the expert in that
Yes.
field. So whether that's in law or in any other area, I think that's something that we all need to be very mindful of.
Mm.
And like you said, it's 2020. The information's available anywhere. But if you can
Anywhere.
make that path of least resistance and help them get from point A to point B
Yeah.
quickly without them having to Google and go through
Yeah.
YouTube videos, they're going to thank you for it. They're
Yes.
going to really value who you are as a
Yes.
person because you're willing to share this information. So, the other thing I want to touch on that we've talked about today, and Siobhan also mentioned, is creating this value for other people instead of scanning the internet right now and looking at your network in terms of who can help you and who you can sell to, or who you can connect with for a job, which I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are looking for. It's really important to really, like Reza said, show your personality, show who you are as a person. You don't necessarily need to ask for the articling position or the job right away, but if people can get to know you and like you, they'll think about you when something becomes available. This is something we preach all the time, is really just put your personality forward and show the value that you're bringing to the table as well. So it's something important, whether you're looking for a job or looking to sell legal services or looking to network in any kind of way for your business or your passion project. Value first. Like, that's just the most important thing that I'm really getting out of this conversation. And I hope you all are too.
I
Yeah.
want to add a comment around adding value. One of the key ways to add value is understanding the other person. I'm going to give you an example. If I go to a if we all go to a doctor and we tell the doctor our fingers are hurting or our hand or wrist is hurting, and the doctor right away says, okay, let me prescribe you this. No matter how knowledgeable that doctor is, you just don't trust that person because they didn't understand. They didn't show the understanding. They right away went and gave you a solution. Same thing with other areas. If that doctor told me, oh, let me have a look, oh, so when you do that, this hurts here and then it goes on the elbow, you're like, yes, that's the pain I'm
Yeah.
talking about. They showed an understanding of your pain. You trust them. Now you're going to follow through with what they're prescribing. So
Yes.
think of yourself as that doctor. When the person comes with a legal advice, if you show in a simple language, in a way that they couldn't even explain their problem. So you are telling them their pain in a better sentence that they could ever tell you. They right away say, you get me, you
Yeah.
understand where I'm coming from, now tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Now they're all ears, ready for you to advise them. A lot of times we jump onto the solution or advice and they're like, why didn't they take me seriously, or they didn't want my advice?
And then it feels more salesy instead of just understanding and building that
Yes.
affinity. Very true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And quite often we call that in the legal world commercial awareness. So it's about making yourself commercially aware, or making yourself aware of the whole story of that client and that person. So it comes through often with your initial interview, but it can be an initial conversation. It can be an initial message or an initial comment on a social media post that then can lead up to more, and you can find out more about their pain points, their wins, their successes, and you can learn more about what it is that the drivers are for that client, that business, that person. And then from that, then you can actually holistically, which is a whole approach, help them as we go forward. So that's a really good point, Reza. Like, it's so important to know more than just, ow, it hurts here. Okay,
Yep.
why does it hurt here? What have you been doing?
I'm
Yeah.
going to share with you something I came across a while ago, and this is a way of doing a kind of a research through your existing network. If you guys have a chance to tap into your existing clients or people that you can interview, because surveys, people don't like that, but when you tell people, I want to understand your pain point, people are willing to talk to you about it. And if you can do an interview to find out, how do they see the problem? You see it as a legal problem. How do they see it? For them, that legal problem means something else. For them, it means losing income. For them, it may means a lot of different things, not having a peace of mind. To get to that underlying reason and see the obstacles in there, and then rephrase your messaging or your marketing message in your videos in a way that they are with their language. So you're still talking about that, for example, let's say incorporation service, or you're helping a startup incorporate themselves. You're talking about the same issue, but for that startup founder, it means between getting a grant faster or not. It
Yeah.
means between getting an investor and being more legit or not. All these, having those language in your videos can act as your interview. So instead of it being in person, your video act as this first layer of interview. So when they come to you, there's already that discussion, a discussion ahead.
Yep.
Great point. Super valid point. Should we open this up? Does anybody else have any questions for Reza or for anybody else? If you don't feel confident asking it now, you can put it in the comments section, or you can also contact us afterwards. You can reach us all individually through LinkedIn. You can find us. But Reza, I want to ask you a quick thing whilst people are thinking if they have any questions.
Yes.
What are you doing next? What's next for 100 events and for Reza?
So I knew exactly where I'm going with my product, but now that this pandemic is happening, I see opportunities for new projects, and as well as I don't think we're going to go back to the normal we knew. There's going to be a new normal that's going to emerge. There's going to be a lot of virtual meetings. We have to get comfortable with this entire a new way of interacting. I'm super interested in how people meet for the first time now that there's not a lot of offline activities. I'm digging deep to see, is there an environment online on virtual calls that people actually meet, and I want to be part of that. I want to either build a platform around it or have some virtual business cards that you can pass. So I'm really interested in that area. I'm interviewing my existing clients. I am hosting some networking events on Zoom, so I can experiment with different ways that people can connect. At the same time, I'm doing 100 podcasts. Whatever is 100 is kind of my brand now. So I'm doing 100 podcasts. I'm doing 100 takeaways on LinkedIn. I'm doing different things like that. But I read one of the messages on the chat. What are the results of 100 programs? I want to say, and I said it at my launch event, I was supposed to do 100 events. Not everybody else are. So it's like people forget that the reason I did 100 events was because whatever the people out there said you're supposed to do, I felt like it doesn't apply to me. I followed my gut feeling and my intuition. And I want people to do the same. I hate it if someone think that, oh, I should now do 100 events and I should follow. Then you become another person that is following somebody else's predefined thing. My message is around what feels right around your community, and when you're networking, just be yourself, put yourself out there. There is a bit of vulnerability with that, and that's the only way you get over that hump and you attract the right people. I definitely don't tell people to go to 100 events. It's not something everybody has the time for. But if you can apply what I did at 100 events to your own few events a week or 2 events a week, um, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Very
And I think
valuable.
having met you, Reza, I think, and following your journey through LinkedIn, it really encouraged me personally to attend different types of events. So when we could go out and we could event in person to person, face to face, it really made me stop and say, why am I attending this event? And would it be more beneficial for me and for other people if I went to this event, which is happening on the same day, and really push myself out of my comfort zone? Because I found I was attending the same format of events and the same people were attending the same ones. So I was really limiting who I was meeting. So I wasn't practicing talking to other people. I wasn't, I'd already met these people. I didn't have to meet them for the first time. So I really challenged myself to go to an event that normally I'd be like, that has no relevance, or I can't see the relevance. And I attended them and I met some incredibly interesting people who were not lawyers. It was great. I met some non-lawyers and I just asked them about them. I got them to tell me their story, and who knows what will come of it in the future. But I had a really nice interaction with those people and we exchanged contact details. And now we're now connected, so we can follow up going forward. And I always use, so I do use paper business cards, but I hate them. But one of the reasons that I do like them is that when people give them to me, I jot down on the back of them 3 things about that interaction I just had. So I write down a physical characteristic about the person so that it sticks in my head who that name relates to, something that they told me that was personal about them, and something that was relevant to their business or an activity they were doing, something that was more kind of professionally related. And they were the 3 trigger points that then when I put them into my contacts, I also put those in the notes field, and it was a trigger for me to remember them. And that if something crops up that I think might be relevant based on those 3 factors, or 2 really factors, I could forward it on to them and be like, hey, I know we talked about this. I saw this article. You've probably already seen it, but I just wanted to send it to you in case you haven't. And it was a way to keep that interaction going, but make it relevant to them about whatever it was that they were telling me about them.
That's again putting value first and valuing the other people. So it's not always about who you can sell to or who you can work with, but it's if you create those connections, you're able to then tap into that person's connections, because if they like you, they will want to help you succeed as well and promote you, right? So it's all interconnected. We just got a question from somebody asking any suggestions that we can have in order to change the mindsets of law firms as they relate to foreign trained lawyers, so everyone could compete on a level playing field. My 2 cents on this is, instead of changing the mindset of law firms, like, why not try to showcase yourself in a different way? Why not try to showcase the value that you're bringing, regardless of whether you are an internationally trained lawyer or a locally trained lawyer? But maybe Siobhan or Reza can jump in to talk a little bit more about how, if we feel we're at a disadvantage, how can we then be on a level playing field with all of our competitors? So I think there's a lot of value in showcasing the things that we bring to the table that other people may not have, and really showing your personality. But is there anything that you two would like to add to that?
Go
I'll
for it.
let Siobhan to talk because
Oh,
I'm not an expert when it comes to law, but I add my 2 cents after your talk.
sure. I think Reza actually touched on this early on at the beginning of his talk for us, where he said it's about branding, it's about your own personal branding. And he was saying, you know, he has an accent. He said that he's not very good at grammar. I don't think that's true personally, but you know, but he worked with that to create his image that he wanted to project in person and digitally. And he wanted to make it to be consistent throughout. And I think that's a really important thing, is we actually can't change anybody else's thought patterns. The only things we can change are what we do and how we react to what other people do. So what we have to do, and this is really, really hard, trust me, we've been there. You know, we're all of us have, like, you know, come from other places, other backgrounds. Even when you just move to a new city, you're coming into a different environment, and you need to showcase what talents you have. What do you bring to the table that's going to be useful for them?
Yep.
And they probably don't even know that they're missing out on that, because they've never even thought about it, because people are very focused, very set in their way of what they're doing. And you almost need to sort of hit them over the head and say, hello, I'm here. But you need to do it in a professional way that's very representative of you and what you can bring to them to add value. And we keep saying this: add value, add value, add value. But one of the things that I believe that all immigrants, newcomers to a city, whether they've just come from Toronto to Vancouver, or they've moved from Newfoundland to Edmonton, you all bring the fact that you've come from a different place. You've grown up with a different way of thinking and in different environment. You've experienced different things. And from that, you can provide a different outlook, a different perspective on a situation. And quite often, people don't realize that they're even missing that. But especially for service providers and for lawyers in particular, we are living in a really, really multicultural world. And our law firms do not look representative of the client base that we're representing. We don't look like them, we don't sound like them, we don't necessarily do the same things as them. But now that it's so much more important to show our personalities and to bring some of that personality in, and I'm not meaning bring it all in, like, you don't have to bring your partner, your kids, your dog into it all the time, but to be able to show that you have this other life outside of your office that you sit in, or your desk that you sit at every day, really is going to help build that relationship stronger and make it a long-term relationship going forwards. Because no one wants a client who just comes in and they're there for one piece of work and then you never see them again. You want to build a relationship with that client that's going to last years. Ideally, that's the goal. That's how you develop a book of work, with continued workflow that's coming in, continued WIP in progress, which is what we're all striving for as service providers, and I think for any kind of provider. So yes, you need to identify what it is that's unique to you, because we all have our uniquenesses. We're all beautiful, unique snowflakes, and showcase what that uniqueness is that's relevant to the law firm, the lawyer, or their clients, and then why that's important for that law firm.
Yep.
And it's really hard, trust me. It's incredibly hard. You have to really, as Reza was saying earlier, you really got to peel back those onions. So it may be that you need to spend some time talking to that lawyer, talking to the people at that law firm, and finding out what their drivers are, what their pressure points are, what their clients are looking for, and then work out how you can provide those services, that experience that's relevant to them. So hopefully that makes sense.
I love that answer, and I want to add my 2 cents. In terms of law, I don't have experience, but in terms of social media, I've seen it. It is disrupting our lives in faster ways that we want to believe, and a lot of people don't pay attention to it. It is taking all the gatekeepers out of the equation. And this means good things for some, and for some others, it doesn't mean it's not good news. If people are, I am a firm believer, if you are relying on your company to bringing you your income, you're in a bad position. You have to now fight for yourself. If your law firm until yesterday was bringing you, you had to convince your law firm, or you had to convince your boss to give me that opportunity or that client. Now social media is putting you right in front of that client. It's up to you what to do with it, and then everybody else will recognize that once you go through. And I'm a firm believer, the market is the market is the market. And for some people, they like to face that market and let the market tell them what their worth is. And for some, they got used to the comfort of just going through some gatekeepers and convincing them that their worth is high, and then go through that. I have an example for developer world. Their skills 10 years ago was very valuable, and they were selling themselves high. Now their skills are becoming a commodity. Any developer does the exact same job, and it's priced very flat. If I don't have any interaction with the person, why do I pay $50 an hour when I can do the same job for $30 an hour, or 25 or 20, and get an overseas developer? When they can put a personal brand to that and their human touch to that, then you slowly get in a relationship that you're willing to pay more, and you're willing to work hard, with that person long term. Because every human being, their skills are replicable. Every other person in your competition can recreate those skills, can package it differently, can sell it differently, but they cannot copy you. You are unique
Yep.
to yourself. You have so many unique attributes that are relatable to some audience. And I saw one question in terms of how to choose target group. The target group, this is a very interesting question, because sometimes we choose the target group and we try to become their relatable to them. But I think if you put yourself out there, you slowly see the pattern, who is choosing you, what kind of a target group is choosing you or gravitating towards you. And slowly you see, oh, these group of people relate to me because of XYZ, and because we have shared experiences. And usually it comes down to values and
Yep.
experiences. And you slowly see a pattern there, and you market to them more and more. But I think it's a mistake to choose that group because they seem appealing and they can make a good customer, and forgetting that they need to choose you too. So,
Yes.
and try to appeal to them.
And I'm glad you talked about values there. As we wrap this up today, if there's any final questions, I'm just going to remind everyone to jump in the chat box there. But speaking of values, I think that's a really good place to start wrapping things up, because that's what you're bringing to the table. So knowing yourself is knowing your core values. I do a lot of this work in my life coaching business, as well as people that are kind of just scratching the surface. They're not exploring who they are as people. So that's a part of bringing your persona into things. It's a part of building genuine connections. And that's how you figure out what it is that makes you unique, what you're bringing to the table, and why somebody would want to work with you as opposed to your competition. So although your skills can be replicated and you can be disposable in that way to your company, what makes you indisposable is you as a person, and what makes you unique, and that's what you're bringing to the table. So I would challenge everyone here to explore themselves and their core values and who they are as people, because that, if you put that forward, no one's going to be able to replicate you or even compete with you, because that's your essence. So yeah, I really like that you touched on that. I don't see any other questions coming in. We'll give it a couple of minutes if anyone else has anything to add.
Guys, that was well, Manu. We are so grateful you stayed up. Manu is joining us from
Thank
India
you, Manu.
tonight. That's incredible.
We
That
really
we've
appreciate
reached
it.
all the way to India. Wow,
Yeah.
I feel even better now. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Reza, truly appreciate you sharing
Thank
your
you for having me.
experience.
Thank you so much.
I mean, the 100 days was incredible to be a tiny part of at the very beginning and to follow your journey. I'm loving the 100 tips. The 100 tips. So if you're not following Reza, make sure you follow him on LinkedIn, because his 100 tips really do
I can
break it
drop
down.
my digital business cards for people
See?
to
That
click
would be
on. This is
awesome. I
how
was
it
just going to say,
works.
where can people find you? So this
Yeah,
is
you can
amazing.
copy that in your web browser and you can find my link.
And if anybody wants to make a digital card and have this kind of online presence, make sure you check out Reza's contact details.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the 100 tips, they're super useful. I think we're on to 19 or 20 now or something like that. We're on, and I found that they're literally bite-sized pieces, and they are actionable,
Yeah.
relevant pieces you can use. That Reza has gained all of this from his 100 days, and the 100 podcasts launches this week.
We are on to episode number 2 is coming this week. Episode number 3. It's me and another co-host. Both of us are startup founders. We are sharing our journey, and every week is a different topic.
Which
Awesome.
is also fantastic, because I mean, for anyone who's in Vancouver or probably wherever you are, there is a huge startup movement, which I think is only going to get bigger
Yes.
after we, get released from where we all currently are residing right now, and it's going to be such an interesting market, even more so than it
Yes.
has been, and to follow along with Reza and his co-host will give you a tiny insight into what some startups are facing, some of their challenges, some of their wins, their successes.
We all need legal work, I tell you.
Yeah, and not just legal work. You need that community, that sounding board to bounce ideas off, which I think we all need. Which is kind of how Global Lawyers started. Global Lawyers of Canada was a bunch of people who were going through a similar thing, but didn't have a community to share that with and bounce ideas off. And from it, we now do these virtual lunch breaks. We get to meet people like Reza. We get Manu joining us from India, giving us a perspective from the Indian legal market and the legal business and the business world in India as well. So, we are incredibly grateful for all of you being here. And going forward, we'd love to hear what kind of questions you have, what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about, because we'll have a great network that we can also tap into to bring you other guests like Reza, who can come and share their experiences that might be relevant to each of you. So please do drop us a message. You'll find us all on LinkedIn, and we'd love to have you join us again in the future. And Reza, thank you again.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Reza.
I think I didn't share this link properly.
No,
now
here it is.
So. Yeah.
We'll share it on our replay post as well when we post it everywhere. Yeah. But thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, everyone that's joining us live. We're really grateful to have you guys here. We'll be back next week with a new topic and another Lunch and Learn.
All right. Have a great week, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.